Hey, y'all, I'm Eboni K. Williams here, host and attorney extraordinaire. Welcome to Holding Court, where we analyze the very latest in legal headlines, the ones that got all the streets talking. You know what we do? We dig deep into how the courts impact the culture. We break it down, going straight from gavel to your news feed. And every week, we keep it 100. Right, Dustin Ross?
That's right.
Dustin Ross, my darling, tell me what you did on this 70-degree weather, I will say weekend, but they played in our face, and it was just one day. So what did you do on this beautiful
It wasn't
Saturday?
even a day, right?
It was a half
It was
day.
not even a day. So I, unfortunately, I was in the crib. You know, I had an issue with my eye last week, and while I was, thank God for modern medicine and doctors and care and resources, I was able to fix that. And so while my eye was coming on down, I was staying my ass inside the house because I looked crazy. And I wasn't finna be outside looking like half and half and, you know, all that. So I stayed inside the house and worked this weekend. I did go have a meal yesterday, but that's it. I stayed inside the house and just did some writing and production work and, you know, hunkered down this weekend. What about you, E?
I think we call that a making money behavior. I like it.
We got to.
Very chill. I did do a little mommy and me Saturday. Liberty the show.
Well, mommy and me.
Yes, I had to take myself down to the Veneteria and have myself a little glass of rosé and a delicious, juicy burger. And baby Liberty was my date, although she slept through most of it. So, but when she got
And I'm
home, I
sure
told
she
her
was a
about it.
star.
Yes. I told her that we had a lovely time. But you're right, because by the time we were on that walk home, it was getting brisk,
Yeah.
and quite chilly. So we
It
enjoyed
was
70
cold as hell by the
degrees.
time. It was only 70 for what, an hour, Ebony?
About
It got
2.5
cold and started
hours.
raining.
Yeah, and then it started
Yeah.
raining. And I said, Jesus be an umbrella as we were walking back home.
For real. So
But it
she
was
ain't
all
like that
good.
shit either.
No. She said, I thought that this was a play day. Okay. So, all right, viewers, we're going to get to this docket. This is, my goodness. I'm sure you guys have maybe seen something buzzing around 23-year-old NBA player Anthony Edwards. And you know I'm So when I saw Anthony Edwards, my mind went to ER. Do you recall the white gentleman on ER?
Yes, I do. Now that is for the people that know. Oh
Now,
my
if
goodness,
you know,
Ebony.
you know.
You know. Yes.
This is not that one. This is a new one. He's only 23. This one probably wasn't even born when that one was big time acting. 23-year-old NBA star Anthony Edwards. He's got a lot going on paternity wise. I'm talking about on the docket today. We're going to get into two of the main paternity cases he's got going on, and there's complication with them. And then upon researching for the backstory on this, this young man, and heavy on young man, again, 23 years old, has been extraordinarily busy, and I have quite a few things to say about it. I think I'm gonna have to go into Judge Ebony mode on this one when we break this one down.
Yep.
But we'll get into that, and then we're gonna kind of go to the intersection of the politics and the policy, of it all. This one's we're going down south on this one. This is in my birth state of Louisiana. Shout out to the boot. Black voters are not having it, and really voters across the board are not having it in some of the shenanigans that they're trying to get down with in Louisiana. Black voters are really standing strong and proud to demand representation in the United States Congress. Dustin, I got to admit, and I'm not proud of this admission, it was just a couple of years ago that I ran into United States Congressman Troy Carter, and shout out to Troy. I remember when I was a wee little baby in law school, Troy was a city councilman and was a mentor of sorts to me, and it's fantastic seeing his ascension to the United States Congress. He took over for Cedric Richmond when Cedric, obviously was congressman, and then president chair of the CBC, was a senior Biden advisor, because he basically ascended. Troy ran and successfully took his seat. And I was like, who else is, your, kind of black colleague in the state?
That's right.
He said, Ebony, we don't have but one seat. And that's when I realized that traditionally, Dustin, in the whole state of Louisiana, which I'm about to look it up, but I know has over 30% black population. So this is a heavily populated black state. Shout out to Louisiana, with traditionally only one black Congress seat. It's a serious problem. So much so that the United States Supreme Court agreed that it's a problem, okay? They're trying to basically take back the newly drawn black district in the state of Louisiana. And again, black voters are not having it. So we'll get into that. And then kind of adjacent to that, Louisiana currently has 4 state constitutional amendments on the ballot. This is brought by their brand new governor who was barely elected, and I do mean that literally. I'll tell you what I mean by that, Jeff Landry. And they're very
Mhm.
horrific amendments, Dustin, when it comes to the general population of Louisiana, but we know when America gets a cold, we get COVID and the flu and pneumonia. So they are all things, Dustin, that will be absolutely horrendous for black voters. Things on taxes, oversight, juvenile justice, and a bunch of other things, including those judicial vacancies. Shocker. Again, I keep telling y'all the judiciary is where
Mhm.
the power really
Mhm.
lies, and he's
Mhm.
trying to come against all of that. So we want to break down everything that's at stake for the voters and especially the black voters of Louisiana. Okay,
Mhm.
Anthony Edwards, y'all, 23 years old. I just can't emphasize that enough, but it's gonna make sense as we get into the story. 23 years old.
Louisiana.
He's a player currently for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He has filed a paternity petition, okay, just this couple weeks ago, March 21st of 2025. Now, I thought this was interesting, and I sent it to our esteemed superstar producer Ashley Hobbs, Dustin, because normally when by the time we see the man in paternity court, if you will, he's quote being brought to court, right? I thought this was interesting because this is Anthony Edwards on his own volition, kind of winning the race to the courthouse, if you will. And it does matter who files first, and I'll get into that in a minute. So he is actually the one that initiated this particular paternity suit. He's,
Mhm.
I don't want to say admitting like
Right.
it's a crime. He is acknowledging that he is the father to a brand new baby. This baby was born on the back half of 2024. I guess she's known as
Drew
Allie D,
Sidora.
but I don't want to say that her name wrong, but it's giving Alexandria.
I believe it's
Okay.
De Roche.
So Dustin, he is conceding that he
Yep.
believes and he is the biological father to a child with this young lady. Her name is Alexandria Durocher. Okay. So sometimes like I think she might be known as
The
Allie D.
Roaches.
The mother and the child now live together in New York, so they are our neighbors. The child was born and conceived in the state of Georgia. And as you might imagine, both of those states, New York and Georgia, have some
Mhm.
differences in the way they
Mhm.
interpret child support and child custody. We'll get to that in a second. Now, he is conceding, I don't like the word admit, on paternity issues, but he is acknowledging that he did engage in the genetic testing. So apparently they've already had some paternity test of sorts, but he's saying, hey, fine, happy to do it again in the construct of the court to establish formal legal paternity. So then we can go on to settle the issues of child support as well. And
Mhm.
he's saying, as has become the case, if indeed we conclude that I legally am the father, he wants his name added to the birth certificate. Okay, so this is what's going on. So basically, Anthony Edwards, 23 years old, has filed paternity suit to establish legal paternity. He wants it established that I am the pappy per the state law, and he's saying he wants that state law to be acknowledged in the state of Georgia, where the baby was
Mhm.
conceived and born, not he doesn't want to be availed to New York custody laws because he's saying that she just did that move there after the fact to basically for a money grab because she likely will be able to get and receive more child support under New York law than under Georgia law. So that's what's going on with Miss DeRoche, okay, that brand new baby. Now, there is another baby, okay? Gotta slow walk this one, D. There's another baby. This one, he has had with
Mhm.
Aisha Howard. Okay, so this is also 23-year-old Anthony Edwards, not the one
Mhm.
from ER, but the one in the NBA that plays for the Timberwolves with Aisha Howard. Y'all, she is 38 years old. And I'm saying that for a reason, and it's the reason that you think. She a grown-ass woman having a baby for this 23-year-old. Are y'all seeing a trend? Okay, we'll get back to it. Aisha Howard also has a baby with Lil
Right.
Baby. Now,
Was born
oh,
in
that's an
2015, so
old baby. That's
he's
a 10 baby.
10.
That's a
Jason
10-year-old
Jones.
baby.
Yep.
Okay, so that's not so
Yep.
not so much a baby. Okay, so that's another one.
Yeah.
So we have a 10-year-old that Aisha Howard has with Lil Baby. Great. So she got a 10-year-old and now she's got this a new baby born in the year 2024. So keep in mind both of these babies, jurors, the one with Miss DeRoche as well as Aisha Howard were both born in the year 2024. Okay.
Mhm.
Whew. Now, Aisha Howard, I'm not, I got to breathe on this one. Aisha
Ebony.
Howard has filed for sole legal and physical custody. Okay. She's not filing for joint. She's not offering that. She's asking the court to designate her as the sole physical and legal guardian. Okay. For her child with Anthony Edwards. She's saying that she's the one that's
Mhm.
fit and she's the one that this and that and da 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 da. Da. She's also wanting it to be established in California. As you might imagine, Anthony Edwards is mad because he's saying that she just up and moved to California after the fact, and that again, that their child also was conceived in and born in the state of Georgia. Georgia having better, more favorable, I should say, custody laws for Mr. Edwards than the state of California. I'll let you know what California said about it in a minute. Now,
Mhm.
Aisha Howard denies that. She says that she was always moving to California before the child was born. She has no intention of returning to Georgia, so she wants California law applied. But LA has something to say about it. LA Superior Court ruled that the child support matter will not be determined by the state of California and will likely be determined by Georgia. So that's that on that. Now, the difference between California and Georgia is, because I know y'all are wondering. So in Georgia, they tend to favor the quote non-custodial parent. So the one that so in this case it would
Mhm.
be Anthony Edwards, right? Paying
Mhm.
support to Aisha Howard under this. Whereas in California, they don't really look at it as around the custodial piece as much as they kind of treat it more equally. And what really makes the difference for them is the higher earner. Okay. So the one with the higher earnings really is the
Mm.
difference maker on who gets the support in which way. Okay. And how much.
Mhm.
So because he's obviously the much higher earner, California was likely going to hit him upside the head. Not that he's not going to be
Mhm.
coming out of pocket significantly in Georgia, but there's levels to it, as y'all know.
Right.
So
Right.
again, reiterating, Aisha Howard has filed for sole, legal, and physical custody. And I want to break down legal and physical custody because it's gonna make a difference in a story we're gonna cover next in the next episode of Holding Court. This has kind of got some medical subtext because that has to do with another star from a hit medical series. Who could it be, Dustin?
Mm.
Anyway, oh my God. I am being real silly today.
You on a
Okay.
roll.
I'm very much so. A hot mess road.
Yes.
Okay, so physical custody is just what it sounds like, y'all. This is who the child kind of stay with, if you will. Who do they live with? Who is responsible for getting them to A, B, C points, the roof over their head, all of that. The legal custody, this is the decision maker. This is who's deciding around their health care, who's deciding where they go to school, who's deciding whether or not they get vaccinated, health issues,
Mhm.
all of that. That is the legal custody piece. So they're very important that if you want to say like you've got full kind of control, you do need both. And that's what Aisha Howard is
Mhm.
saying. She wants legal and physical custody solely as, the not just primary parent. She really want to be the only parent and maybe allow some visitation, but we'll see. So, and she's also asking the court, this is interesting, to reimburse her for her expenses during pregnancy, the birth of the child, and any cost associated after the birth up until this point. Because essentially she's claiming, Dustin Ross, that Anthony Edwards ain't putting nothing on
Ain't
it
done
at this
shit.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, ain't putting and in fact, I didn't want to get into some of the alleged text exchange because they were just very cringe. But it's everything y'all think, like, go get the abortion. I don't want nothing to do with it. She claims that upon telling Anthony Edwards about her pregnancy, he blocked her on all platforms, made it clear through his text messages he didn't want to be involved, and called the future daughter, unborn child at that time, said that she would be a fatherless child. Then he never reached out to inquire about her well being. This is all from Aisha Howard. This is what she's saying, or the well being of her child, our child or any needs that I have. I did not receive any support whatsoever, financially, emotionally, or otherwise, throughout the duration of my pregnancy. So she wants literal payback, like not in a vengeful way necessarily, but she wants retroactive payment is what we call that in the court.
Well,
Now, he's go ahead. No, go ahead,
that's
Dustin.
what
This is a
happens
lot.
when you date when your ass is 38 years old and you fucking around with a 23-year-old boy. Man, but boy, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's a
I
there
mean,
there,
we
there
we always have to, yeah.
come on, and there's nothing to be there if that situation can work, If the two people can figure out how to make it work, then fine, that's your business. And there's literally nothing wrong with it, right? So we're not speaking from a place of right and wrong. I'm speaking from a place
Mhm.
of the probability of having to deal with dumb shit like this, or get text messages where somebody's telling you, you know, crazy shit about this very serious
Mhm.
situation, but they're spewing rhetoric that is typically, you know, akin to the mindset of somebody that's 23, still figuring shit out, and let alone a rich
Whose frontal
23-year-old
lobe
person.
is Yeah, whose frontal lobe is still literally being developed. And
So
again,
you
that's not an
38.
excuse,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, but it is it's a biological scientific fact that part of the cognitive elements of decision making and reasoning are literally still being formed.
Formed.
And by most scientific standards, it's not a completed process until closer to 25 or 26. That's literally science. And just so y'all know, jurors, I used to make that argument often for my clients as a defense lawyer when prosecution is trying to give them the death penalty or life in prison. Excuse me, let's slow down. My
Mhm.
client is 22 years old.
Mhm.
There's aspects of their cognitive development, not saying what they did was right or was right, but let's factor in all the mitigating factors. And I think you're totally right, Dustin. In this case, his age would be a mitigating factor in terms of what is reasonably foreseeable
Yeah.
for a 38-year-old grown ass woman who, by
Thank
the
you.
way, has already been down this road. That's why I wanted to find out the age of her first child. So you did this 10 years ago, ma'am,
Mhm.
when you had the baby with Lil Baby. She really better be glad she's not in Judge Ebony's courtroom on this one because I would really be letting her have it. Let me just wrap up these facts and then get into my take on it.
Mhm.
Uh, Anthony Edwards is saying that he is not seeking child custody or visitation with the daughter, which put a pin in that. The only issue that needs to be resolved is financial in nature. So let's just lay this out. And I'm just gonna deal with the Aisha Howard piece. 38-year-old woman gets pregnant and gives birth to a child for a 23-year-old young man. Okay. You did this 10 years ago with Lil Baby. I don't know of her having other children in between. So let's just go with the facts we know. Let's just go with those two children. You're seeking sole child custody and support, physical and legal custody, rather. You are seeking support and back pay for the expenses you've incurred thus far. I'm wondering, Dustin, and I really do. This is a good faith inquiry on my part, and please give me your take because I'm struggling to see where there is reasonable expectation of any kind of support around. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I wonder if Anthony Edward is being counseled on this from his legal team. That if he doesn't plan, as he's saying, I am not seeking child custody or visitation. That is a big fucking statement. So if that's the case, Mr. Edwards, and this is literally what I would ask him on the bench, and she would be probably mad as fuck about it.
Mhm.
I would say, Mr. Edwards, if you seek not custody nor visitation of this biological child of yours, why would you not just go ahead and take it a step further and surrender your paternal rights entirely, which would then also surrender you from any financial obligation to the child? And that is his legal right to pursue. And then as the judge, I would yay or nay that. And then if I yay it, ma'am, Miss Aisha Howard, who decided it was a good idea, a reasonably appropriate decision to bring into the world this daughter to a 23-year-old who made it clear at the onset during your pregnancy he wanted no parts. It would be a fatherless child,
Mhm.
blah, 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 blah. And by the way, I think those are all pretty horrific things to say to anybody. But he said
Disgusting.
it, and apparently
Yeah.
and apparently he meant it. Apparently he meant it, because he's still saying now that the child is here. See, I think a lot of women go forward, Dustin, and Imma just keep it a buck, thinking they're going to change their mind, thinking
Mhm.
that, "Oh, once the baby's here, they'll just look at that sweet, beautiful face and melt and wanna either be with me or if not be with me, certainly be a part of this innocent, lovely, beautiful baby's life." And I just wanna be real clear about the fact that maybe, maybe not.
Right,
Maybe,
right.
maybe not. So now that this is a maybe not situation, legally speaking, I would say the reasonable thing, the thing that makes sense, Dustin, go ahead and surrender, sign, waive all of your paternal legal rights, since you don't want to visit or have any custody or any involvement, that will alleviate you, sir, of your financial responsibility. And then you, Miss Aisha Howard, ding, 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 play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You'll get exactly what you're looking for from the court. You will absolutely get sole, physical, legal, and every other kind of custody. Okay. And you will also bear the full sole responsibility financially.
Yep.
Because low key, ma'am, low key, this looks like this was a maneuver. This looks like this was an effort to have a baby on you wanted your baby. I believe that she wanted her baby. I believe that she didn't have a damn care in the world about whether or not there was father participation or co-parenting, or I want a baby, but I want to make sure that my baby has a dad. No, I don't think you gave a damn about it. And by the way, I'm the head caucus leader of women who decide I want to be a mom on my terms and go about that business with or without a father. So this is no judgment around that, Dustin. But where I am going to put on my Judge Ebony
No, but
hat
one's
is you don't
ethical,
get to
one's
do
not.
that. Yes, right. One is standing on
Yeah.
business and saying, I'll be the mammy
Right.
and financially the pappy too, and I'll incur all expenses and responsibilities associated with mothering and sole parenting my child. The other one is saying, I kind of low key want to be the sole parent anyway, which is why you running your ass to the courthouse to get sole legal and physical custody. But I want somebody to put something on it every month for me.
Yeah, there's deceit.
That's
There seems like
giving to
there's
me. Now,
deceit
if
involved in
I'm,
it.
but maybe I'm reading it wrong. What you think?
I think it's deceitful. It seems deceitful. It seems strategic, and it's just like I said. It just lacks integrity. Like it seems like
Mhm.
she set him up, and she was a. I just googled while I was sitting here because I wanted to know the age difference between her and Lil Baby. And if she's 38
Mhm.
now, Lil Baby is 30, so she was older than him. She was 8 years older than him, which is not a lot, and which is not unheard of.
It's not as
But
much as this.
right.
It's only not a lot in comparison.
But
Yeah,
but
go
it
ahead.
tracks with her dating younger men and then ending up in this
Mhm.
paternity situation where now here we are having to deal with the fallout. So I don't know. It does seem like she was angling for this, angling for a
Yeah.
certain outcome. And
It
I
it's
think
it's
that's what
it's
people are
giving.
taking issue with.
Yeah, well, it's certainly what I'm taking issue with. And again, I didn't know all these.
Hmm.
I don't know these people, so I really, became familiar with the characters and the capacities as I was researching for today's show, and it don't pass the smell test, D. It don't pass the smell test. I'm also looking at her age as it relates to the biological clock issue. And I'm speaking to her, so to speak. If she was in my courtroom, this is a peer-to-peer conversation, ma'am. You are a woman of advanced maternal age, just like I am. And guess what I am also doing, just like you are, ma'am? Having conversations with other women in our peer group. And it is a thing, it's a thing, quiet is kept, and I don't know that it's that quiet, that women over the age of 35, some who have had children already, some of us who had not had any children at all, are making a high stakes decision. Do I want more children or do I want any children? And men, listen. If you are a man, hetero or otherwise, has sex with women on occasion, listen to this. If you are dating or dealing with a woman over the age of 35, I'm putting y'all up on some game, D. I'm serious. And y'all are not using protection, know that it's a high probability that she wants to have get that baby in under the buzzer, so to speak, and pun intended, under the buzzer. And you, sir, are a sitting duck, likely, that will provide that for her. And to Dustin's points of the ethics or unethics of it all, instead of doing what I did and other women like me that decide, hey, I want to be a mom on my own terms and I'm willing to do it in a solo capacity because I'm not partnered or I'm not partnered in the way I would like right now, instead of going to the sperm bank, buying the vials, wholly at the onset taking the financial responsibility of the child on your own by yourself as a sole parent should do. Nah, you're like, you know what? I want my baby. I don't really give a damn about nobody else co-parenting with me. But again, I want somebody to put something on it every month.
Right,
I
right.
like to give, and it's not just NBA players and rappers. That's the ones we hear about. In real life, Dustin, I see this often.
Hmm.
And I see it with guys that work in marketing. I see it with guys that work at the bank. I see it with gentlemen that work at FedEx. I'm dead ass.
older men that are on Social Security and fit and retirement,
I
you know,
see
or
that.
pensions,
Yeah,
them, yep.
people having the baby for Mr. Earl, people having the baby
That was
for
in what was that
young
book by,
Tony.
it was a Terry McMillan book, A Day Late and a Dollar Short, and in that book and they made it into a film
Mhm,
too with Whoopi Goldberg, but in that story, her
mhm.
husband,
Well,
her
Whoopi let me tell you something,
ex-husband ends up
Whoopi Goldberg is gonna be in a Terry McMillan m made for a
she
movie
gonna be
situation.
stuck.
Go ahead.
Stuck right there, perfect
Yeah.
for it, and we love to see it, but
Mhm.
she,
Yes, we do.
her Ving Rhames played the father and the ex-husband of Whoopi Goldberg, and it was a young lady in the
Oh.
church that had gotten pregnant with her 5th child, and she said that he was the father, and he was not that baby's father, and the main character played by
Mm.
Whoopi Goldberg, and in the book, I can't remember her name, but anyway, she was the one who told her ex-husband that she heard that baby wasn't his, and she saved him from that. But that was the story there,
Mm.
you know, someone trying to attach
Yeah,
paternity of a
that was the
child to
play.
someone else for financial gain or whatever the reason. And
That's
that's old,
it.
that's been happening since
Yeah.
the beginning of time, you know what I'm saying? But you just gotta be a little
Yep.
bit smoother with it if that's what you're gonna do, goddamn.
Now this would be different. I wanna be clear. If Anthony Edwards said at this point, "Now the child is here, that's my
Mm.
baby, that's my daughter, I wanna be involved." If you're gonna be involved, and
Mhm.
you are gonna co-parent, then you do need to put something on it. Absolutely, whether you wanted the baby or not. Now that the baby's here, if you gotta pay to play, sir, okay?
Mhm.
So if you wanna play pappy and you wanna be there for father-daughter dances and you wanna da 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 da, and you
Mhm.
wanna have an opinion on school and this and that, oh, you absolutely got to pay to play. Now, that we're not giving out child support passes.
Hell no.
But if you're saying, "I want no parts," essentially, I am in all ways surrendering my role as the father, just go ahead and make it official. Sign on the dotted line, relinquish and waive all paternal rights, and then you, Aisha Howard, win what you wanted to win. You get absolute sole custody, physical and legal, and then you also have to bear the financial responsibility all by yourself.
Hit it, Celine.
All right, so next up on the docket, this is the state of Louisiana, the citizens of Louisiana, I should say, Dustin, really standing on some business here. Black voters in Louisiana are fighting for voter representation with a second majority Black congressional district. Now, I covered this heavy back when I was doing a nightly show on the Griot, and this one hits home literally to me. Y'all know I was born in the
Mhm.
state of Louisiana. Shout out to Tangipahoa Parish and all of that. Supreme Court case on Monday, March 24th, so just a couple weeks ago, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments, and this is the US Supreme Court. This ain't state. This is US Supreme Court heard arguments on whether Louisiana must uphold a second majority Black congressional district. And I just want to say this too. This has been going back and forth with the US Supreme Court for the last several years. And it's
Mm.
so disgusting and telling how much these, I'm gonna say it, white folks, because this is exactly who
Yeah.
this is. These are these white folks, white Republicans to be specific, in the state of Louisiana, who are so insistent, so indignant around keeping Black voter represent. This is how serious they take voter suppression in the state of Louisiana, that they keep running this back to the Supreme Court instead of just
Yeah.
conceding that even a 6-3 conservative majority Supreme Court, even Amy Coney Barrett, even Kavanaugh, even them
Yeah.
have already spoken on this issue, Dustin. And they said, give the Negroes a second district. That's what they said. That's what they said.
Mm.
And yet here we are again. Anyway, of course, this is going to impact a ton. But as we get to, again, in a story we're going to cover in the next episode of Holding Court, this shit matters a lot to all of us nationally, y'all. So don't think of this as, don't tune out right now because you thinking this a little
Right.
local ass story. No, no, tune
Right.
in
It could be
because
you.
when the it is you. It is
Yeah.
you. Let me tell you how it
Yeah.
is you, Justin. Because when you've got a United States Congress that's Republican majority is less than 5 seats or 5 seats exactly as it is today, each one of those seats fucking matters. And if Louisiana can get an extra seat and shrink that majority, now we could talk about flipping the power structure
Yeah.
in the Congress. Then we could give something to Hakeem Jeffries so
Yep.
he could put something on it.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
literally, that's how important this is. So don't think, oh, it's Louisiana, it's just one seat. I mean, it's important to them, but it doesn't really impact. No, 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 it impacts you.
Yep.
This is your Medicaid. This is your Social Security. These are your pensions. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So what does this look like? Okay. Louisiana, that's the other thing. The case will be setting national precedent as to future drawings of district seats nationwide. So it's a twofer in terms of how it impacts you, jurors. I don't care if you in Wisconsin, Florida, California, or Georgia, this does impact you. Okay. Louisiana state legislature, controlled currently by Republicans, drew a congressional map in the year of 2022. Okay. That was challenged, again, taken to the Supreme Court for being racially discriminatory, which it was, also known as redlining. I know y'all are familiar. It was only one of 6 districts with majority Black, despite Black residents making up a third. I knew it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
33%
Mm-hmm.
of the state's population is Black. So how do you tell me, Dustin, in a state that is 1/3 Black, why are not 1/3 of its congressional seats Black?
Yep.
Why not?
Yep.
Oh, voter suppression and race discrimination.
Yep.
That's why. So the courts ruled, again, the Supreme Court ruled that the map was unconstitutional per the Voting Rights Act. And again, I just want y'all to break that down. This 6-3 Republican ass, conservative leaning, supermajority conservative Supreme Court said under a thinned out, gutted Voting Rights Act, because that is the state in which the act has been left since 2012, when Clarence Thomas and that court gutted it per Shelby v. Holder. So even under a crippled Voting Rights Act, literally crippled, diluted Voting Rights Act, and an extremely Republican Supreme Court, even those two mechanisms said that this map was unconstitutional. Do you know how egregious the map has to be for that outcome? And so they ordered the creation of a second majority Black district. And it was created. And it was currently it's being represented. It was a race, and who won? Another former mentor of mine. Shout out to Cleo Fields. Lord have mercy. One day we'll have to have a whole episode, Dustin Ross, on the Cleo Fields of it all, the Troy Carter of it all, the Oliver Thomas of it all. There's some folks listening to this that know just how that episode will go. But anyway, shout out to you, brother Cleo. Won, and now is a United States congressman. He was elected, duly elected, fairly elected in November of 2024. So right now, both Troy Carter and Cleo Fields serve as the gentlemen from the state of Louisiana, currently in the U.S. Congress. And again, because that majority margin is so thin, it matters, and it matters a lot. So now a new lawsuit has been filed because, again, just the indignant nature of these white voters. So they're saying that Cleo's district, being represented by Cleo, Black man, is what? Racially discriminatory against white voters. See, again, we're seeing this everywhere, right? We're seeing everywhere where policies, laws, and judicial decisions that have been made to correct and right the wrongs of discrimination from yesteryear. We know the discrimination against Black folk is now being turned on its head, Dustin, and being reframed as discriminatory against white folk.
Which is ridiculous and insulting, to say the least. It's so fucking insulting that they're trying to paint that picture as if they've been wronged somehow, because they're just trying to keep motherfuckers down. It's horrible, man.
Yeah, and I think half of them really believe it, Dustin, because I forget the quote and who said it, but it was something like, I'm paraphrasing, when you are so conditioned to believe in your right to superiority and inequality, when that way of being is so innate and natural to you, actual equality feels like an injustice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like an injustice. That can be. Now, some of them are just playing dumb, I do believe. But some of them, they have truly bought into their own corruption. And they truly believe that they are entitled to a superior way of life in this nation and in this world. And that all of this work, whether it's affirmative action, whether it's the redistricting of congressional seats to more accurately reflect the population of Black folks in the state, all of these things, DEI, they believe, Dustin Ross, that all of these proactive steps to make a more equal society flies in the face of their birthright of white supremacy.
Yep.
Of white nationalism. This is the thinking. And it's very, and I know some of y'all are like, ooh, what? I believe it's very important to understand the psychology.
For
Because
sure.
I do not believe we can properly, I don't believe we can defeat it if we don't understand it. So that's what's going on there, y'all. It's and stay tuned here at Holding Court. We will be updating you. Again, the Supreme Court will be revisiting this same district again. And keep in mind, what is also related is Alabama. Alabama must create a second Black majority district. It hasn't done so yet because they are still fighting that out in the court. But when and if this Supreme Court says, like it said in the state of Louisiana, the Negroes do need another district, think about what that does to the national power balance, y'all. If Louisiana and Alabama both have second Black districts, it makes a difference.
And we need that difference.
So keep it tuned. My God, we do. Again, we talking about all of our pensions, all of our Social Security.
Yep.
A lot of shit that comes up before these courts. And I didn't even get to abortion rights or women's reproductive, or I'm talking about the pocketbook issue. Shit. So that's it.
Well, this story really has pissed me off. I just say that. I got an attitude now. Because what the fuck, man?
You got an attitude. No, I know it's bad. It's crazy to me only because this super conservative court has already ruled in favor of it, in favor of the Black district. And these whites are saying, we want y'all to look at it again. I mean, that is, man, one thing about them, they got some audacity. And we'll see what the courts do, because if the courts rule against itself, then we know even further what their situation really is. So we're going to see. Wrapping this up, y'all, just to conclude the whole episode, also in Louisiana, there are 4 amendments on their state constitution that are up for vote, okay? They cover everything from the courts, tax structure, the juvenile justice system in the state of Louisiana, and again, those all-important judicial vacancies. The vote took place already. It was an entirely statewide, and all of them failed. And I think that's important for y'all to know too, because again, if 1/3 of the population of Louisiana is Black, then we know the other 2/3 are not. So that means that it's not just the Black folks that voted this shit down. The entire state, the white folks, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, indigenous, everybody said hell no on all 4 amendments. They rejected lawmakers trying to create these new little special courts. They rejected the lawmakers trying to totally revamp the tax structure and to take away their deductions for seniors, take away their deductions for business and property tax, and also take away the opportunity for teachers' pay to be raised. They voted all that shit down. They rejected the thing that allowed juveniles to be prosecuted as adults. They said, no, we don't want that. We want our juveniles to still have a chance at rehabilitation and redemption. They also voted down harsher sentences that did not focus on rehabilitation. They actually said, Dustin, we'd like, if we can, to be able to save our young people. Wow. They also voted to keep the current system in place for filling judicial vacancies, because they knew that the new one would just basically allow the governor to run a fucking muck. And keep in mind, y'all, when I said he was barely elected in the opening, I meant that shit. He was barely elected. Only 18% of the eligible voters in the state, 18% turned out and voted for this man. So this was a combination of extremely low voter turnout, okay, and just wildly unpopular candidates. So unfortunately for the state of Louisiana, they had 8 years of, by most accounts, a very successful Democrat governor, John Edwards. John Bell Edwards was his name. And then after that, again, and I do blame this on the state Democrats, fell asleep at the wheel, and they've allowed this motherfucker to roll up in here, and he's trying to wreak shop. But at least the state of Louisiana said not on their watch. So all that shit was voted down. Congratulations, Louisiana.
Good job,
That's
Louisiana.
it on this episode, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job on that. Shout out to y'all. We will be back with a new episode. Y'all know how it goes. We will be holding court. It will be back in session. In the meantime, Dustin Ross, what would you have the people do?
Read your terms and your conditions.
Host and executive producers here, Eboni K. Williams, yours truly, and the Dustin Ross. Executive producer in Dossie, McCraw. We've also got our senior producer, Ashley Hobbs. And follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any and everywhere you get your podcast.